Good morning, everyone. Okay, please, if you are not speaking, kindly mute the microphone so that we reduce or minimize distractions as
Good
much
morning.
as possible. Please, let's keep our microphones muted. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar session for 2025. It's our pleasure to have you on this conversation this morning. The webinar is one of the series for the manuscript writing session, which will span for the next 3 to 4 weeks. So for each of the weeks or weekends, we'll take a section of the manuscript writing. So it's like a workshop, okay? So the webinar is organized by Plus-CircleCommunityHealth Advancement Organization, which is a non-governmental organization committed to advancing community health and driving sustainable changes through health education, school health programs, and research-focused capacity building programs. We are open to collaborating with both private and public organizations to achieve our mission. Over the course of the presentation or the webinar, which is going to be very interactive, we have tried to minimize the presentation to half of the time dedicated to the session so that we can take questions and be able to discuss as a group. Everybody loves to be an author, but the quality of the article and the quality of the writing tells a lot about the personality of the authors, as well as the effort that has gone into preparing the piece. So in today's webinar, tagged Writing a Compelling Manuscript Introduction, we will be focusing on unraveling tips to help put our best foot forward while preparing the introduction section of our manuscript. Our speaker is Dr. Olayinka Stephen Ilesomi. He is one of the top 2% researchers in the world globally. He would be joining us shortly, but before he proceeds, I would continue with the presentation and then step aside so that he takes the presentation. I am one of his products, right? All right, thank you. Again, if you are not expected to speak, kindly mute your microphone. We would not want to remove anyone at this point, okay? All right, Miss Ajala, you are co-host. Kindly help with that task. Thank you. So,
In level 2 now and level.
all right. So we'll be following this outline. Please let's engage. From time to time, if there are questions, you may use the chat box so that we can use that to address the questions as the presentation or the discussion progresses. Over time, it's been emphasized to us that research is systematic in nature. So it means that there is a standard way of doing it. For every research, there is an expectation, which is standardized globally. And generally, research is like re plus search. So we are searching again and again and again for the missing tips. We are searching again and again for the missing tips. All right, so we need to keep digging and searching to unravel new knowledge about any particular subject matter. We also need to correctly interpret the inquiry or the investigation we have undertaken. So, before an inquiry is conducted or before we do interpretation, there needs to be some processes, some of which are conceptualizing the study or the research, conducting data collection, analyzing the data, and making inferences, reasonable inferences and deductions, which pertain to what we have talked about. So a couple of times we may be tempted to overestimate our results and to just blow it out of proportion. But that is not the systematic way of doing it, okay? And the goal entirely is to promote understanding of real life issues. We don't just conduct researches for publication's sake. What is the motive? The motive should be to solve a problem. There are so many health issues plaguing our world today, and we need solutions. So that is why you should conduct a research. Okay, so in manuscript writing, we generally have the IMRAD structure. That's IMRAD. Some people, in some instances, write it as IMRAC. So the I stands for introduction, the M stands for materials and methods, the R stands for results, and the D stands for discussion or conclusion, as the case may be. So this is the global way. There is no manuscripts or paper or article that you see anywhere that will not follow this guideline. There will be some differences at some points, but it is still the same strategy, still the same template, both in Nigeria, in Canada, in the UK, in Italy, and the rest. And other parts of the manuscript are very, very essential. The title of the manuscript is very important. It should be informative. The abstract, the keywords, and the conclusion, those are very important. Okay, so our manuscripts must tell our story accurately. It must tell the story, just like we say, how I spent my last holiday. So that introduction session of the manuscript must be rich enough, but not necessarily too long. If it is becoming too long, we are likely to be putting too much irrelevant information, okay? So for the introduction section, we need to summarize relevant research and we need to situate it in literature. So sometimes some people have proposed that we should use the funnel approach. Excuse me. So for the funnel approach, you start from the global overview. You then go to, if the study is focused on Nigeria, for instance, we'll start from the global overview. For example, Mpox in South Nigeria, okay? The study is on Mpox in South Nigeria. Pattern, prevalence, and determinants of Mpox infection among sexually active women in South Nigeria. That is a sample topic. So if I want to start the introduction using the funnel approach, I should talk about Mpox, first of all, the global prevalence, and then start narrowing it down. Check for data from some other countries, check for data from sub-Saharan Africa, check data in Nigeria, and then icon it down to my destination. But we should not overflog the matter. There is always that temptation, okay? In addition, our introduction should show what contribution our work is making. So there was a time I prepared a manuscript. It was a systematic review. And I was so thrilled at the quality of the manuscript. You know, there are times we write and you have convinced yourself that this is amazing. It was very good, amazingly good. So I had submitted the manuscripts to Global Health Science and Practice. Meanwhile, it was a collaborative work between myself and Dr. Elesomi, who is supposed to lead this session, and some other colleagues. So when I submitted it, the peer review reports came back, and the major issue that was flagged there was that there was a similar research paper that had been published before, which I apparently missed. It was also a systematic review, but which I apparently missed during my search, which was very similar to my work. Mine was more robust, right? But they did not see that much justification. Unfortunately, still, the article was published in that same journal. Yes. So I just got a rejection letter telling me, apologies, we couldn't find too much differences between this and this, although your work is more recent And that was how the conversation ended. So I had to go further to read the article that they had mentioned and to see for myself if there was any difference. What new knowledge will my work be contributing? What gap exists currently in literature? As we do say, readers are leaders. Before someone sets out to conceptualize a study or to even write an introduction section for any manuscript, we need to think things through and we need to establish it in literature. Is this thing worth doing? What gaps have been existing over time? How does my research bridge the gap? So we need to be able to identify the questions. Those questions are research-based, based on what we have read. So if we have not read sufficiently, we are not licensed to proceed with writing or conceptualizing an article or a study or writing an introduction. Okay? And then we should describe. So the introduction basically captures the background, the problem, how problematic is the problem you are investigating, the justification, why is it important? If we do not address this now, so what happens? So it needs to be very clear. So it needs to be very in the work we are doing and in the description of our introduction section. Okay? So that said, the introduction, depending on the journal which we are submitting to, does not necessarily need to have the methods. It shouldn't even have the methods. But our introduction should end with the research questions. It should be clear. What is the aim of the study? There are some researches that do not need hypothesis. So depending on the context of your work, if an hypothesis needs to be stated, please include it in the introduction. Research questions, please include it, especially objective. What is the objective of the study? So everybody reading the introduction should have a complete understanding of what to expect. And that's why we do emphasize that it is important to put our best foot forward in preparing our introduction section. The introduction section, the first paragraph of the introduction section should be like a punch. It should be punchy enough. It should be punchy enough to ensure that we accurately capture this. So I've explained what the introduction should state, including the problem, how problematic is the problem. A background, robust background, but when we do research, when we write, there are some redundant words which we may just need to expunge. We may need to remove them. Let's just keep it short and simple using the acronym KISS. K for keep, I for it, S for short, and the other S for simple. At times, some journals will say, we do not want more than an introduction of 150 words. Some would say no more than 4 paragraphs. So we should be able to play around this and be flexible enough to ensure that all these components of the introduction are accurately captured, regardless of the length of the journal we are submitting to. And then the reasons for conducting the research, that is the justification. So why do you want to undertake this investigation? It should be clear to us. Okay, so while starting the introduction, we need to begin with a general statement that sets the context for the research. So I would like to give an example. In 2024, I think, in 2023, I published an article on physician brief advice for smoking cessation among cancer patients in low and middle income countries. Yes, physician brief advice for smoking cessation. So I was amazed at the quality of the introduction section. I wrote it, but it was super amazing, and I was thrilled at the quality of my writing. Meanwhile, I want to say again that it's a process. It's a process. We do not expect, don't let's overpush ourselves at the start. It's a process, it's a phase which everybody undergoes at one time or the other. So you may not be at the best level yet, but there is always room for improvement. I am also growing. So the introduction section for that manuscript or for that article started with a question. So that may be something that would be very catchy. Like I said, let's make the first paragraph very punchy. It makes readers glued to their seats. It makes reviewers interested in it. The article was published in BMC Public Health and it was amazing. It was amazing. We got positive feedback, principally because a lot of efforts had gone into it. That was not the first version of the manuscript or the article. It wasn't. That was like the fourth version. So a lot of efforts went into it, okay? So at times we may need to consider starting with a question which then opens up or sets the stage. It's just like drama, right? So it can begin with a general statement that sets the context. Is mpox and a public health issue of concern in Nigeria? That may be something we open up with, depending on what the subject matter that we are investigating is. So the introduction helps the reader understand the big picture, and gradually, like we've said, we should narrow down to the specific research topic. Okay, and then why does it matter? It is important for us to highlight it, highlighting its potential impact on policy, practice, even economic development, as well as future research. What costs? How much can organizations save if they prioritize a research as this? Occupational health risks are there. How do they minimize cost, promote the health of their staff, employees' well-being, and maximize productivity? So it's something everybody wants to think about. Everybody comes with the lens of what's in it for me. So we need to carefully craft it so that what is in it comes out strongly and we don't leave our readers confused or trying to make sense of what we have written. All right, so what is the strategy to use? Again, these slides were prepared by Dr. Elesomi, but I have gone through the slides, so I am able to present it, but he will be joining us shortly, so please stay glued to the meeting, okay? So what strategy do we need to use? Think of the introduction as 4 sentences. I think that's a simple way to approach it. 4 sentences. 1, the general situation. The general situation. The specific situation, where you will narrow it down to the population we want to study. So we need to unpack and unwrap what it looks like amongst that population, okay? The gap in our knowledge of the specific situation and what you did or what you will be doing, what you did since it's been conducted already, but if it's futuristic, what you would do to fill the gap. So it is very important we bring this clearly. The 4 sentences, we can expand on them subsequently as we keep writing. But let's approach the introduction section with those 4 sentences. The general situation, the specific situation, the gap in knowledge, and what you did to fill the gap. A best introduction is short, brief, straight to the point. I was I participated in a webinar organized by some emeritus professors in Nigeria and abroad. So they were saying there is a difference between the way Africans write and the way researchers from developed countries write. In Nigeria, we really don't go straight to the point. Just like we do even when we have conversations. We beat around the bush and keep going, keep moving, style by style. But people in the developed countries really don't have that much time. So they just try to keep it short and simple, hit the nail on the head, and go straight to it. So we need to be able to be adaptive and accept or embrace new innovations. embrace innovations even in our writing to ensure that if in some instances we can reduce the 4 sentences that we have prepared into 1 sentence without it losing its thought, let's take it on. And just as a recommendation, when we write, it's important that we have someone review it before we submit, as well as a researcher and an English editor, so that they can see or identify ways to make it better and more compelling for both reviewers and the final audience. Okay? We've talked about the use of the funnel approach. Should not have all of the literature available. We do not necessarily need to put all the literature in that 1-page introduction. No, it's not possible, because our thoughts for the article we are preparing needs to also come out straight. So we should not just lump up literature in what we are doing, in what we have prepared. No, or in what we want to do. Let's ensure that our voices come out straight, even amidst the literature we are trying to synthesize. Okay, and let's avoid jargon. We've talked about this. Never end the introduction section with a summary of your own results. The introduction is setting the stage, opening the stage, setting the scene. We don't want to know what your results found from the introduction. If we do, people will not be interested in reading it to the end any longer, because it is not an abstract, it is an introduction. All right? So the template for the introduction, we need to start with what we know. What do we know about sexual and reproductive health among adolescents in Ekiti State, Nigeria? Oh, previously, Ekiti State has accounted for the highest rate of unintended pregnancies highest rates of unintended pregnancies among teenagers or among adolescents compared to other states in the southwest region of Nigeria. That is what we know. What we don't know should be the next paragraph, which is where you are situating your own study, the reason for your own study, what we do not know. So we need to bring it out. If that what we don't know section is not coming out, people do not get the reason why we undertook the study. So it is very important for us to ensure that. Arranging your introduction, like I've said, the style varies from journal to journal. Like Global Health Science and Practice, for instance, that's a journal, a sample journal. The introduction, depending on the type of article, the introduction could be as much as 6 to 8 paragraphs, depending on the length and type of the article. Okay? But just generally, it's usually about 3 to 4 paragraphs, and we need to make it punchy. Usually, the recommended length for the words in the introduction section should be not more than 450 words. And then, like we've said, we move from general to specific. It's a journey, and we do not want our readers or reviewers to be lost in transit for any reason. All right, we've talked about this, and let's also ensure for some of the manuscripts or articles we have seen, some journals will say, please do not add articles that have been published beyond 10 years. Do not add articles do not cite articles that have been published beyond 5 years. We need to ensure that we read the guide for authors very clearly before we proceed. We need to ensure that we read it clearly before we proceed, so that we are well guided as we progress in writing. Okay, and also we need to master the reference style for the journal of our choice. Okay, so this is a sample article published by Dr. Ilesomi, myself, and Dr. Oderide. Yes, so this manuscript was a part of our Part 2, WACP Part 2 examination. okay? And it was titled Food Insecurity and Associated Factors Among Households with Under 5 Children in Slum Communities in Ibadan, Nigeria. Let's take note of the title first. It is comprehensive. The words in the title, food insecurity and associated factors. The who, households with under 5 children. The where, slum communities in Ibadan, Nigeria. So it is complete. It is very complete. Now, if we take a look at the introduction section, we can see that it's about 3 paragraphs, which starts with the global discourse on food insecurity. Okay, who are the people that are most at risk of food insecurity? And then it continues to open up, oh, in North America, in Africa, then in Nigeria. So it is using a funnel approach. You know, the funnel is wider at the start and then it narrows down. So we need to ensure that we use this strategy very well. It is widely accepted by most researchers globally. Okay, and then it talks about the risks following food insecurity, both immediate risk and long-term risk. And then the last paragraph talks about why it is important. You know, we also included that food insecurity is a major problem faced by slum dwellers beyond the general population. Slum dwellers are a high-risk population. So we brought out all the key words, all the key issues associated with what we are studying. And that's really, really helped to promote the acceptance of the article. It was published in BMC Public Health as well. All right. So, like I've said, it opens up the stage. So we need to put our best foot forward. Let's put our best foot forward. In some instances, we can start with questions. If, for instance, I want to start with a question here. Is food insecurity still a global issue? Is food insecurity still a critical global issue? Oh, absolutely. Food insecurity affects millions of individuals, especially vulnerable populations such as under 5 children. So that is a way we can go about it. So there is no one-size-fits-all approach to it. It depends on what we want to do and how we set out to write, okay? And then it continues. This is the second paragraph, which further digs into the problem. The problem must be problematic. If the problem is not problematic enough, we are not likely to convince the reader. It must be problematic, sufficiently problematic, okay? And then this is the third paragraph. And you can see that the third paragraph ended with the objective of the study. It ended with the objective of the study. So we need to clearly capture this. The objective should be the last thing that we are talking about. We are not adding a justification or a further explanation to the objective after it has been stated. No, we do not need to do that. Okay? All right. So this is the physician brief advice article that I was making reference to the other time. So, just a minute, yeah. So, it starts with, let's read the topic together. It says, physician brief advice for promoting smoking cessation among cancer patients on treatment in low and middle income countries, a scoping review. Remember, this was not the first version. This was not how it looked like when we started writing or when we produced the first draft. Okay. So, Dr. Yesiru, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir. Please, can you read the first paragraph?
Okay. Can the link between smoking and cancer be fully understood without considering the effectiveness of physician-led interventions? Absolutely not. In the realm of the link between smoking and cancer stands as a stark testament to the intricate interplay between personal choice and the formidable specter of disease. Amidst this complexity, the role of physicians transcends the realms of diagnosis and treatment, expanding into the domain of profound influence and transformative guidance. For cancer patients, the connection between smoking and their condition is not merely theoretical, but deeply personal, entwined with the journey through illness and survival. It is within this fragile juncture that the power of brief advice on smoking cessation assumes profound significance. Physicians, as guardians of health and bearers of knowledge, possess a unique opportunity to shape the narratives of their patients' lives. A simple yet poignant piece of advice delivered with empathy and understanding can serve as the catalyst for a profound transformation. It is a moment where medical expertise converges with compassionate mentorship, urging individuals to redefine their relationship with tobacco and, in doing so, potentially altering the trajectory of their illness. In this intricate dance between medical wisdom and personal choice, the impact of physician brief advice not only echoes within the chambers of individual lives, but reverberates through the corridors of public health, underscoring the pivotal role of healthcare providers in the battle against both cancer and the enduring habit of smoking. This is very important given the increasing occurrence of cancer in many countries.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So, it has lots of English, but the English are not too complex. So, more generally, people do not need to take a dictionary or consult a dictionary while reading this. But if we look at the introduction, that first paragraph, it's like a drama. It looks less technical than if we start by saying the prevalence, maternal morbidity, disability adjusted life years. If we start with that, we are going to lose some audience. But with this, even someone in the literature field can understand. Someone who is not a public health scientist or a public health researcher can also understand. So we always want to get balance. Please, let's mute your microphones. Thank you. So we always want to get that balance in preparing our manuscripts or our articles. Who is it meant for? Who are the people that are likely to use it? So that should help us in setting the tune for the conversation, okay? And then the second paragraph talks about the incidence of cancer in low and middle income countries. Remember, the last part of the first paragraph is talking about this is very important given the increasing occurrence of cancer in many countries. And then the second paragraph starts with the incidence in many low and middle income countries. So there is that agreement between the paragraphs. One paragraph should automatically introduce the other. They should not be at par. They should agree. There should be that concurrence between them. Like I said, how I spent my last holiday. I should be able to tell the story without any detachment of any of the sections. Okay? And one thing that is very important to note is if a high school student cannot understand what we have written, most other people who are not in our field may not understand. If a high school student reads our paper and cannot understand, still needs explanation on A, B, C, and D, even when we use DALYs, that's disability adjusted life years, CALYs, and the rest, we should still be able to explain what it means and the implications of those words, of those abbreviations. What do this mean in the real life situation? We should be able to explain it clearly. So we've talked about this, and this is the second paragraph, which ends with the effects of the challenges of smoking and why smoking cessation is very important. What will happen if physician brief advice is not incorporated into smoking cessation interventions for cancer patients? What will happen to them? We are talking about poor infrastructure and the rest, but we are not at the end of that continuum yet. Things are likely to get worse. Healthcare expenditure is likely to increase. Budgetary allocation for other important issues we suffer because the country would be grappling with a lot of healthcare expenses. People have to pay more out of pocket. The poverty index is likely to worsen. So let's bring out the problem over and over and over again. We should hit it the nail on the head. How problematic is the problem? Every problem must be very problematic before people can see why it's important to investigate the subject matter. All right, so now, like I said, this was not how the manuscript was when it was prepared. So we had ended it at the point of we therefore undertook this scoping review of the literature to fill the research gap. Remember, we have talked about the research gap previously. To understand the effectiveness of physician brief advice is promoting smoking cessation among cancer patients in low and middle income countries. Now, the reviewer came back and said it is important we explain what scoping reviews are and why it is important for this particular study. Now, that's the preference of the reviewer, but generally, every introduction should end with the objective. Every introduction section of any manuscript should end. Even when we write books, our thesis, our dissertation, the introduction usually ends with our objectives, okay? So, as we wrap up this section, we would recommend we do the following. Please have a mentor or colleague read your draft, especially somebody that is not in your core field. It will be very important. If I, as a person, I specialize in sexual and reproductive health, but I do a lot of other cross-cutting activities or undertake other cross-cutting research with people, especially in the health sector. I've done some in agric, which are relevant to what I do, okay? But if I want to prepare a draft of a manuscript on health insecurity in Nigeria or universal health coverage, I can share it with a colleague in the agricultural field. Tell me, do you understand what I have written? Just let's get that clarity first. And in selecting a mentor, it is an important choice in a research career. Everybody needs a mentor. I have mentors. And my mentor, one of my mentors of all ages is Dr. Olayinka Ilesomi. Yes, I have learned, I have invested, I have learned over and over. I've invested my time to learn. So it's something that we need to be very deliberate about. Mentorship, being a mentee pays on the long run as long as we are willing to. Mentors usually are very busy people, so we need to prove to them beyond reasonable doubt that we are really interested in learning. We shouldn't back out after one or two refusals or one or two rejections and just assume, oh, this person does not have my time. Really, they don't have the time. They are very busy people. But as much as possible, they want to see if we are worth the investment of their little time, the little spare time they have, which they can actually plow into other responsibilities. if we prove to them beyond reasonable doubt that we are worth it, they would be interested in investing in us. Okay. So if you have a proposed journal, it's something that some people also set out to do. While you are thinking about the gap, let's try to check journals. Oh, and if the journal would want such an article, what are the types of articles that the journal has accepted in the past? And then we'll pay attention to the style of that journal so that it is likely to guide us. But if we do not set out to check a journal first, it still really doesn't matter. We may just need to do some reformatting. But it is important that we do not overwrite the first version of the manuscript that we have. In case we send it to a journal after we have adapted it to their own style, if they say they do not want it, it is not suitable for their journal, you have something, your original copy, to fall back to. Not that you are starting from scratch entirely. Okay, and it is important to read the instruction to authors for the journal. It is on every journal page so that it guides us sufficiently even as we proceed. In all, almost all good writing begins with terrible first errors. You need to start somewhere. Start by getting something down, anything on paper. A friend of mine says that the first draft is the down draft. You just get it down. The second draft is the up draft. You fix it up. So this quote was prepared by Anne Lamott, and it's really the truth. Okay, so these are the references. Thank you so much for your attention. All right. So can we take questions?
No, that one that you're writing is not academic writing.
Can we take questions? Do we have questions? Questions. You can use the hand raise icon to ask your question. Okay. Doctor, I would just call everybody a doctor on this call, whether or not you are one. So, Dr. Suglo, over to you. Please ask your question.
Okay. To everyone, please. Please, in your third paragraph of the smoking, the cancer smoking serious in the cancer distance, the third paragraph says, I'm just quoting, paraphrasing. We therefore undertook. I'm particular about the undertook. We therefore undertook this study. And in the introduction, I don't know. I'm confused a bit. Well, I don't know whether the introduction aspect should always be in present tense or because it's assumed we are still now doing the study. But the word undertook there, I don't know whether mostly you see like this study therefore seeks to. So I was thinking probably it should be we therefore undertake.
Okay.
But I'm seeing undertook. So I just need a clarity on that.
Thank you. So thank you for your question. Let's recall that the research has already been conducted. Like we are writing a report. So the report of a work that has been conducted should be written in past tense. We have done it already. It is not futuristic. We have completed it. So if this was a prospective work that, we will be undertaking this, there are people who have published their protocols for their work. They've published it. At least I know some people, the likes of Professor Owolabi of in neurology or so, at the University College Hospital Ibadan. He publishes protocols a lot. Protocols of the project, protocols of the study they want to do. So such can be futuristic. But a work that has been completed, even when we are talking about the aim, we have undertaken it already. We are reporting what we have done. So it won't be, this study will aim to, because we already aimed. It was the aim that got us the results. So it's just that. So it should be written in past tense because For this one, it has already been completed. If it is a prospective research now, we will talk about, oh, this study will be aimed to, but since it has been conducted already, it's the ideal thing is to use past tense to report the objective. Even the methods, this study adapted a something like that. Did I answer your question? Okay, sorry,
Yes,
please,
please.
can
Yes,
we
please.
mute our microphones if we are not speaking? Miss Nemeka, please. Mr. Dennis. Okay, thank you. Dr. Azizat.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma, for the presentation. It was actually enlightening. I just want to ask for the introduction, can we also starting Nigeria, Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Africa, Europe, and then go the other way? Must it be a funnel shape style?
Okay, thank you for your question. So, it must not always be a funnel shaped style, but it is better we start from abroad and come closer home rather than starting from sub-Saharan Africa and going back to Europe and coming back to Ghana, then going to Brazil, and then coming back to Nigeria. It's like, so I stay in Abuja. If I am taking a trip, a road travel, I'm doing a road travel from Abuja to Ibadan or Abuja to Ilorin, it should be a straight road. I shouldn't be going back and forth. I shouldn't first get to Benin and then go back to Shagamu and then come back to Abuja again and then set out all over. And if we do that, it will distract the readers and will leave them confused, because the question the person will ask is, where are we going? But it does not necessarily need to start from developed countries. If the matter we are talking about does not pertain to them, if it is not an issue over there, we just need to start from where it is an issue. So there are some, maybe something like leprosy may not really affect the United States. It may not really affect it may not really affect Brazil. It may not really affect UK. It may not really affect Canada. It may just be a sub-Saharan African thing. So we then start from the global prevalence in sub-Saharan Africa, and then we bring it down that way, and we eat it on our population of interest, the country or subgroup of interest. But if we are going back and forth, just let's adopt that straightforward movement. How I spent my last holiday. If I want to talk about it, I should talk about maybe my plans for the holiday, the day the holiday started, what I did, where I spent it, the people I saw. It should follow that logical sequence. But if I start by saying, oh, I spent my last holiday was December 2024, and then I go to, in 1994, Abacha was the president of Nigeria, and I come back to 2024 again and say, so as I was going to Cotonou, where I spent my holiday, I remembered that my friend borrowed me a book in 1996. So that book, I had borrowed another friend in 1997. We will be bored reading it. Yeah, so it's better we just get straight to the point, use the funnel approach, but the starting point may differ depending on the issue we are trying to investigate. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Dr. Yesiri, over.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for this very enlightening presentation. I particularly enjoyed that you simplified introduction to the basics And I want to thank Prof for the slides. I also like how you're able to bring two examples to send home the point on how to stratify introduction in a 3-paragraph format. Thank you. And particularly of the first sample that was an app represented from somebody's dissertation. So I want to ask this question. Now we know that in our dissertations, in introduction, we cover part, problem statement, background, research questions, justification, and then we go on to write our literature review. And then in an article format like this, we only write introduction and then we go into the methodology or the methods as the case may be. So my question is, if we now want to write an article from our dissertation, so how do we harmonize the part of introduction, background, research question, justification, and our literature review in putting everything down in introduction?
Okay.
Is it that maybe our paragraph?
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Yesiru. I know it can actually be very challenging because we have a lot in our thesis already. Okay, so I'll just reply briefly, and Dr. Elisami is on the call too. I believe you would be able to provide some additional. Hey, apologies, I logged off. Right. Okay, so I was saying that I would reply briefly, then Dr. Elesomi, who is also on the call, would lend his voice to it. So, while reducing our book into a manuscript, the overview, the background section, and depending on how much data we add in the background, right? The background is going to be just one paragraph of our introduction in a manuscript. It will be just one paragraph. So we need to read and bring out the most relevant sentences which should flow into each other at the time we are done harmonizing. So that's background, one paragraph. Now, problem statement plus some parts of justification, one paragraph. Or the problem statement may be just one paragraph, standalone, which would still have some components of the literature review. Then the third paragraph, justification, depending on how many paragraphs we have to write, okay? Third paragraph, justification, and then fourth paragraph, which is quite usually short, would be our hypothesis, not listed hypothesis, but hypothesis in words that summarizes what we are talking about in prose, okay? And we end with our objectives. But subsequently, I am putting it as a recommendation to Plus-Circle, if there would be an opportunity to do some hands-on using a sample dissertation of someone or a sample dissertation that we have, so that we can do some maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks workshop on reducing the dissertation into a manuscript. That would be super fantastic. Prof, you are still with us, right? Would you like to add some additional insights into the question Dr. Yesiru asked? Are you available to talk, sir? Hello, Dr. Elesomi. Okay. I don't think so.
Sorry, apologies. I won't be able to talk. I'm in a very noisy place. Thank you so much. You have done justice to the question. Thank you. Please consider.
Okay, so someone said, Dr. Akman, I believe some few sentences from your justification and problem statements can be covered in the introduction, including the objectives. Absolutely. Absolutely. The introduction covers background, justification, problem statements, research questions, and objectives. Right? Okay. Okay, so Dr. Lesami sent this. Yes, okay, he replied, but not by copying and pasting, but a concise summary. Some colleagues copy the entire dissertation, entire introduction of the dissertation, but it is not acceptable in manuscript. So plagiarism is something we should always look out for. We should not plagiarize. We should maintain ethical integrity. Okay, Dr. Osman, that's noted. All right, thank you very much. I'm Dr. Yesiru. I hope I've been able to answer your question. I'm Dr. Inyade. Over to you, ma'am. Hello, Dr. Titi. Hello. Okay. Dr. Adewemimo, over.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. So I wanted to ask, now for the introduction part you said, and I know that introduction, you have to introduce what you want to do, like the background of the study, the problem statement, justification for the study, and then the objectives. But then can it be in sections like that? Like doing the introduction in dividing it into sections, like having like subtopics like justification of the study, and then doing justice to that, and then the problem statement, then your aims and the aim and objectives of the study.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So it can exist in sections or subsections. But eventually, when the sections that we are creating would be for just our own personal consumption. By the time we are done, we will just need to delete those sections. But it may be important for us while we set out to write so that we ensure that no section or no subsection is left out. So recently, I submitted an article to a journal. I think that was still Global Health Science and Practice. It's a high-ranking journal, so I love the journal, right? So I submitted the article to that journal. I had rewritten the article. It was a complete revamp. I was not the one who prepared the article at first, but I felt it was a report before. So I had to prepare it into a manuscript. I wasn't too convinced about the introduction I had written, right? But I felt, okay, if I submit it, it was not bad, but it wasn't the best quality, which I would normally write. So I said, okay, if I submit, I can get feedback from the reviewers, even if they would reject. So I had that allowance in my mind already. So by the time they got back to me about 4 months later, it was a rejection mail, and they told me, oh, you overemphasized the issue of hormonal IUD in Nigeria. We need to know the gaps that exist. We need to do this and that. So we just need to ensure that we do not over-amplify one section or one subsection beyond the other. Everything must be punchy. Everything must be well captured. So just to summarize my response to your question, we can have that overview, problem statements, justification, hypothesis, and objectives. We can write it while we are preparing our own draft. But by the time we are sending it externally, we need to remove it, unless it is a PowerPoint presentation. That's when we would need to add that. But anybody who reads what we have written would know where the problem is. If I'm talking about the fact that more than 60 million people in Nigeria are food insecure, I know that is a problem. So it will be evident. But to guide us, we would need to we may need to include this subsection so that we ensure that we do not miss out on any of the subsections which we are expected to integrate into our writing. All right, thank you. Dr. Adewemimo, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Dr. Onyade, are you able to talk now?
Yes, morning.
Good morning.
I'm always very happy to see you, and I think I admire your person.
Thank you.
My question is that while writing the entire manuscript, I want to find out this AI, is there no use of it in our write-ups? Or is it like you are a cheat if you make use of AI in writing and bringing out some points, some concepts you wouldn't know before time? I want to know. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for your question. So, firstly, there is an ethical way to use artificial intelligence tools. There is an ethical way to use it. We can use artificial intelligence, AI tools, as brainstorming tools. I've used it to brainstorm, like I'm having a conversation with somebody. I know what I want. I have an idea of what I want to write. Not even, it's just to think about something. So I use it as a brainstorming tool, but I do not allow it to replace my thinking faculty. I do not allow it to replace my writing skills. If I do, I become over-dependent on it. And I would not, that ingenuity in me, that originality in me will be lost in transit. So the way to use AI is, the way I write is this. Once I have situated what I want to write in literature, like I have found a gap that exists in literature, I basically write off my head. I would have summarized items, relevant information from literature, but I write off my head. I then go back to literature to look for data and more relevant information, which I will not copy and paste. I would rewrite it, I will paraphrase and add it to what I have already written. And then if I want to now fine-tune the grammar, make it more cohesive, make it beautiful, I can then use an AI tool to refine what I have written. And one thing I do when using AI tools, such as ChatGPT, I go to the settings so that it does not use, I want my work to be private to me. I go to the settings and disable the option where it would use my conversation with it in their programming language. I don't want any other person to look at what I have written. So I disable that option. That is what I do, so that it does not use what I have written, which is still supposed to be kept confidential if I am talking to somebody, maybe somebody I can't see really. But I just want to streamline it to just myself and the tool. So we can use it to refine our search. But if we become over-dependent on it, we are saying we are copying and pasting, we are depending on it solely, it can generate a lot. It is a fantastic tool. Those tools are super amazing, but we are at the risk of becoming redundant and at the risk of losing our skills if we become over-dependent. So, in summary, let's still retain our originality, but we can use it to fine-tune, to refine our language, to refine our use of words. And then for articles, there are articles that have been retracted or withdrawn in the past because they saw that the person used an AI tool for everything. Journals run AI checks. Even institutions run AI checks. Maybe not all Nigerian institutions, but outside the country, they run AI checks. And the limit is about 20% or so. In some places, it's about 15%. So they just want everybody to have their originality. We are humans, we are different in structure, we are different in how we present words, we are different in our writing styles. So everybody should still have that. And in instances for manuscripts, when we use AI to refine the search or for any purpose, to generate images and the rest, we should declare it. There is a declaration section under every manuscript. We should declare it and state exactly what we have employed the AI tool to do. But like I said, the ethical use of AI means that there are reasonable limits within which we can use it. We suffer the risk of losing what we have built over time if we become over dependent on AI and start copying and pasting exactly the way we have seen it. We can use AI for brainstorming, to ask questions, to get ideas about mathematical models, how to write codes, commands, but we should not be too dependent on it. It is not the only solution. We have this originality in us. Yes. Dr. Nyode, did I answer your question?
Yes, you have. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
All right, ma'am. Dr. Adewemimo, your question?
No, it's actually not a question, but to buttress what you have said, I once ran into a problem with the use of AI. So I think one should just be careful the way you use AI. Like you said, in fact, there are schools that check, like using, to know if you actually used AI. Imagine asking someone to report the work that they have done, and now you are using AI check, and you find that is just like the person reading might assume you did not even do the work at all.
Yes.
That probably just went on. So I thank you very much for that. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Aduloju. This is so true. It's important to direct the use of the AI as opposed to doing a copy and paste. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Chinedu. We do AI checks for all postgraduate work at the center. Great. So please, AI technology is very important. It is very, very important, but it is important we use it within reasonable limits. Technology makes life easier, but there are ethical ways in which we can use it. There are ethical ways for using it. And in summary, while we check for other questions which people may use. Okay, what AI tools are there for guarding against plagiarism checks in manuscript writing? Okay, so there are many AI tools you can check online, but I'm sure that for usually undergraduates and postgraduate students in some institutions, they use Turnitin, where you would have registered with the LMS or the Management Information System at the institution. Yes, Turnitin has an AI detection tool, but there are others online. There are others who are free to use. Turnitin is not completely free. An instructor must have signed you up under Turnitin, but there are others that are free. I may not have them at the top of my head, but even within ourselves, when we write, when we plagiarize, we know, right? We know. So let's just ensure that we paraphrase. And we are not supposed to copy the contents of a manuscript and paste it on ChatGPT or any of the other AI tools, asking it to paraphrase it for us. No. Let us read. Let us be intentional about reading. It is important. Readers are leaders anywhere. It is a cliche, but it is still real. For those of us undergoing postgraduate programs and the rest, let us use AI tools reasonably. Let's use AI tools reasonably. We should be able to beat our chest and boast to defend our work. It would be bad if we have an extra semester or we need to repeat our project, our dissertation, because we copied something online directly. It's not fair to ourselves. It's not fair because time would have been wasted, money would have been wasted, life would have been wasted, and that's really not so good. I've seen someone who, in the UK, she had an extra semester, and you know how heavy, in quotes, the tuition fees are. She had an extra semester because she fell short of the AI check. So please, let's be careful and let's spread this knowledge home and abroad to our colleagues. For those of us who employ people to do our projects, please, it is not an ethical thing to do. You should be able to do your project by yourself. If you can seek support from a mentor or from colleagues, it is important, so that at a minimum, let's be proud of the efforts that has gone into it. When we are able to do that, we would understand the rigor and appreciate when the article comes out beautifully. We'll be able to say, oh, this was what it was before, and this is the final stage. I can understand how I have transitioned from the different phases, and that would help us even in the work we do from time to time. All right? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Dambazo. Improving or shortening sentences with Grammarly, is it flagged in AI check? So Grammarly is an AI tool also. It's an AI tool. Well, I'm here to confirm if it is flagged, but it is an AI tool. So if we improving sentences that are not AI generated will not be flagged. Improving sentences that are not originally AI generated, I generated it myself, but I used an AI tool to shorten or improve it, that shouldn't be flagged. But if it was generated by an AI tool from scratch, and I adopt another AI tool to improve or shorten it, it will still be flagged. So Grammarly is an AI tool, but ChatGPT and others they are the new wives or the younger generation, right? Okay, so I hope I was able to answer your question, Dr. Ogorafo. Okay, so again, so it depends. Mendeley is an AI tool. Everything is artificial intelligence, okay? But Mendeley is just basically for referencing. Zotero, EndNote, they are for referencing. Usually we don't use them to generate words or to think about what we want to do. We just use them to, yes, they are AI tools. Okay, so we use them to generate references, but we do not engage. You agree with me that we do not engage with them as much as we do with these recent versions of the AI tool. So if we use Mendeley, is an amazing, highly recommended tool for referencing or software for referencing. Zotero, EndNote, they are very good. Okay, the new one should be used the same way, right? It's okay. So we just need to use them ethically. My name is Anu Oluwapo Afolabi. That is my name, and I'm happy to have supported Dr. Elizabeth to moderate today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. We do hope the lessons we have learned would be put to use, and we would use it to improve the quality of our work subsequently. Next week, Saturday, we'll be taking a look at how to write the method section. So please, if you have questions ahead of that session, you may share it with us via email. Please feel free. We would be interested and available to support you in the writing process. If you need to consult on any of the activities or ideas, concepts you want to refine, you can reach out to us via mail or via our WhatsApp platform. We would be glad to support. The link has been posted, and the recording of this session would be shared. It will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and it will be shared with us too. So do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel for timely notification. In conclusion, the session, like I said, is running for about 4 weeks at a minimum. We may expand it depending on how each of the session goes. If we are not able to complete one in a week, we tend to expand it, or based on requests, we may need to retake some sections. All right, so please kindly add the invites or the link or whatever it is to your Google Calendar so that you get notified. This was sent as 4-in-1. So please add it to your Google Calendar. We would also send a reminder. And we'll be sharing opportunities too, fellowship opportunities, research opportunities subsequently, which we can leverage going forward this year. And we do hope we'll be able to maximize the opportunities and improve our research abilities before the first half of the year comes to an end. All right, so with this, we have come to the end of okay, we do not currently have a WhatsApp group, but it's something we would consider so that people can reach out to us. But thank you. Yes, thank you. We have all our emails, and we'll be glad to make sure that these communications reach us. Thank you so much, everyone. We couldn't have done this without you. We would be sharing the link. We will upload this on YouTube. Absolutely. Okay, we'll consider the WhatsApp platform or Telegram. That's fine. We will do that. Okay, so do have a lovely weekend, and thank you for staying true and tuned to us today. Enjoy the weekend, and let's keep sharing knowledge everywhere we go. Goodbye.